Get ready, Raiders, because this is a big one. In this episode, I'm going to be speaking to the architect of Lara Croft's future, to the man in charge of Tomb Raider. So if you've ever wondered about how these games get put together and exactly how big a fan people like this are, stick around. I'm Chris, this is Raidercast, the Lara Croft and Tomb Raider podcast, and today I'm going to be speaking to none other than Dallas Dickinson. Dallas Dickinson, welcome to Raidercast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Excited.
Oh, this has been something that I've wanted to do for so long. You don't know how long I've wanted to speak to you about Tomb Raider. So let's dive into some questions. Let's get to know you and a little bit about what you do. So very first off, could you tell us who you are and when did you start gaming?
All right. So you've already dropped my name, Dallas Dickinson. I am the franchise general manager for Tomb Raider. So I am the person who kind of sits above all of the stuff that we do, both games built internally, partnerships, and other licensing stuff, even the linear stuff, TV, film, etc. So that's my role now with Crystal Dynamics. When I started, I have been a gamer for far longer than I care to admit out loud. I was playing D&D in the 1970s. I was playing computer games, when they were then, Colossal Cave Adventure probably is the first thing that I played. This is early 1980s. I guess I was playing console things before that because Atari and I had a Commodore VIC-20, and I don't know when that came out, but I'm going to guess that that's probably about 1981 question mark. So I've been playing games for a very, very long time. And really, like, I guess I've always been a hardcore gamer, and I never knew that this was actually a real job, especially because when I started, it wasn't, right? It was people kind of building stuff out of their garage or out of their college campuses, computer science labs and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've been a gamer my whole life.
Fantastic. In all that time, what have been your top 3 favorite games?
So yeah, this is always the toughest question. So I'm going to answer it in several ways. Probably the one that got me and hooked me is Zork 1, the first one of those sort of text adventure games from Infocom. Again, this is early 80s stuff, right? This was, and it was when they had it was sort of a chat parser essentially, because it's a text-based game, and so you could ask it, you could try to do all of these things, and a lot of the game was figuring out what actions were even allowed, but to solve a puzzle, and you were in the Great Underground Empire. So really, really captured my imagination, and kind of brought a little bit of that D&D feel, dungeon crawly kind of feel to the video game space. I think the next one that is high up in that list is the original Baldur's Gate. So I did actually end up working for BioWare for a number of years. I made a game called Star Wars: The Old Republic, but that was after having been a fanboy for a decade or more, and really it was the same thing, right? It was, oh my gosh, they have figured out a way to pull my love of this particular type of gaming, RPG gaming, into this space that is not only RPG, but it has these deep narrative aspects to it. And then the easy toss it in because it's true, but it's also my job. Tomb Raider is one of those iconic games. It was iconic to begin with. It was also pushing the boundaries technologically. Again, I had a buddy who had a PlayStation in 1996. This is right after I had gotten out of college, and he invited me over to his bar. He's like, "I'm playing this game," and I'm like, "Holy crap! This is amazing, next level." And it had the puzzle solving, which is part of the thing that I got out of Zork. Right, Zork is very much a puzzle solving game. It's puzzle solving, but it's also narrative, but it's also presented in this beautiful 3D, again at the time, very beautiful 3D presentation. And so all 3 of those, I think, kind of combined it. So the opportunity to work here at Crystal Dynamics, especially as the quality of the cinematic storytelling had been significantly upped with especially the Survivor trilogy. I think the 2013 game was it was better than any other game that had happened in that type of space in terms of its cinematic storytelling. I was like, oh god, this is combining all my favorite things.
Wonderful. That's quite a trilogy of quite different games, I think, across the years. That's wow.
Yeah.
All right. So You've had your favourite games across time, but what has inspired you? What did inspire you to take that step and get a career in game development? How did you get started?
It's kind of accidental. So I had a college roommate who was, and this is in the space that I was, I mentioned I made online games and all that. We played a lot of multi-user dungeons, MUDs, back in the day. So this is mid '90s, and so he was really into it. He was a computer science guy. So I would play with him. He kind of showed me the ropes about like not only how to play these games, but also how to build your own content into these games. And then he was offered a job out of college to work for Lord British. And I was like, wait, they'll hire you to like go and work on, and at the time we didn't know it, but they were building Ultima Online, right?
Wow.
And he turned it down, and I was like, well, that's crazy, dude. That would have been cool. Unfortunately, I was not a computer programmer, so I was not part of the interview process. But a few years later, I was living in Los Angeles. This is a very weird side story, but I had been on the television show Jeopardy! And I had a friend who had been hired to write for Jeopardy! Online, and they needed a producer. And he had worked with me doing theatrical production, film production, stuff like that. And it was like, you know how to do this stuff, plus you're good on the show. And so he just got me a job interview to be an associate producer on Jeopardy! Online. So that's the real way I got in, not believing that it was a thing, and only having known this one friend from college who had gotten into it, again, like, or had sort of chosen not to get into it. But that pulled me in, and then I was at Sony Online, which pulled me into working on EverQuest, and then got me all the way into the path of making these online massive multiplayer games.
Wow. Goodness me. And how has it been since then into your current role?
Yeah, so as I said, like I worked at Sony Online for a bunch of years, and so it was very much online games, so a massively multiplayer space. We didn't really have the best of storylines, to be quite honest, right? But I referenced I'd been in LA. I have a background in sort of film and theater, and so that's always really been another passion of mine. And so the opportunity to come and work for BioWare, where they were kind of doing both, that got me into this space where I was like not only building video games, which is the thing that I had actually been doing for the past 5 to 10 years, but video games that had this cinematic storytelling element to them. And so all of the conversation systems and the first and the third and second act structure of a BioWare game, all of that stuff was really, really exciting and resonant to me. I was at BioWare for around 7 or 8 years, something like that. Mm-hmm. I went off briefly and did my own studio. We built a game called Breach. We launched it. It completely failed, and I shuttered my studio. Again, this is a truth that happens in the industry, but the opportunity that was most interesting to me after that was working at Crystal, and it was because I was such a huge fan of, at that time, specifically the Survivor games.
I'd finally set out to make my mark. To find adventure. But instead, adventure found me.
Holy crap, you guys are making cinematic masterpieces within game structure with all the fun puzzle stuff that I already like. So it really just was, that opportunity was too good to pass up.
All right, so this is how you get involved with being franchise general manager for Tomb Raider. Touched on it a little bit in your intro. Could you tell us a little bit more? What do you sort of do day to day? What do you deal with?
Yeah, so it's probably 3 distinct lanes. So a lot of it is that I am still in charge of. I have some sort of senior and executive producers who work for me who are building the next mainline game, which that we can't really talk much about. But like we call these are our AAA internal titles. So those are things that I am on the steering committee for, right? So I'm talking with them, problem solving, basic like game production stuff. Oh gosh, do you need more resources? Well, I'll go and fight for some budget for you to make sure you get these resources. Oh, let's reprioritize. Like very much this is just game dev, executive producer style stuff. The second lane is managing all of the partnerships, so the licensing, all of the fun toys and figurines and merch, the comic books and everything else that is sort of like a Tomb Raider branded item. That also comes through me because we have a small group here that are the franchise team. We try to make sure that everything is as on brand, on franchise as it can be. The art of it, we do lots and lots of rounds of feedback to make sure that people are representing Lara as well as the franchise appropriately. But then the third part is working on the linear titles, the anime series that's about to drop. So being part of the review process on the scripts and the casting and the art and each cut of the episodes. Same will be true as we go into the live action stuff that I know has been talked about. And so I get to kind of sit as sort of like the conduit of making sure everything is aligned with the brand, with the franchise, with how we want Lara and Tomb Raider represented.
That's super exciting. I can't imagine just being in that sort of position where you get to see everything that's happening with like your favorite franchise and just being there, right there in the moment, in the room where everything happens.
It's awesome. And the thing, this is a weird way of saying it, because we've now started doing more and more and more, and my team has grown a little bit. I now actually get this wonderful thing of, I don't see something for 3 weeks. Right, like because it's in a cycle where other people are looking at it and giving feedback and all of that, and so it's sort of that thing. It's like being like the awesome uncle, where you're like, I don't have to see these kids, except I see them every 6 months, and they're awesome. And so I get that experience where I'm like, hey, yeah, what's going on with this thing? And they show it to me, and I'm like, oh my God, that is fantastic. Wait, when does this launch again? Okay, this launched in 3 weeks. This is great, right? So I still get sort of the fan reaction in some cases as we review these things.
Wow. Are you in that sort of position where sometimes things like that have happened and they've gone out to other people and come back to you and been like, actually, no?
Absolutely. Yeah. We've again, this is a truth of any large franchise or brand like this. You sign contracts and deals with people, and it's all based on, honestly, the core thing that I'm supposed to be responsible for, and the fans will have different opinions on whether or not it's been successful, is I always want to have partnerships with people who deliver at the level of quality that we want. And when we write these contracts, there are always there's always an out where we go, you're just not going to do it here, folks. Like, you're not going to get it. And we actually have a significant difference of opinion, or it's just not it's not going to land, and we can't let that thing actually go out the door. And so, without naming names, we've had a couple of partnerships that we had to actually say, this one isn't going to happen, y'all, and I'm sorry that we went down this far down a road, but we don't believe in the product or in the timing of the product anymore.
Fair. That must be difficult to do, but I understand why things like that have to happen. In regards to other games in the industry that are either competing with Tomb Raider or are just sort of coming out around the same time, how do you sort of stay current with latest gaming trends and technologies in game development?
I'm going to answer in two ways. My first answer is me 15 years ago, I played everything, right? Like, I would literally play end-to-end every product that was close to or near to or competing with or just like was getting interesting either fan reviews or critical reviews and all of that. My answer now is I sample everything. So I still try to play everything that comes out, but I probably play an hour of them. Like, and, there are certain games that are a little bit more aligned with the type of stuff that we make, and I may play more of those, or I may complete some of those. But my completion rate of games in the last 5 years has gone down significantly, which is a bummer. But it also is like, it's the way that I do what you asked. It's the way I try to sort of stay relevant and current on things. So sometimes it really is just a tech demo, right? Like, it is like, whoa, there's a game that is doing this right now. You should take a look. And it may not have really anything to do with what we're currently working on, but it sort of falls into the, maybe the next product we need to incorporate that aspect of it because it's a really cool technology. And I can think of a way that this might actually apply to a Tomb Raider game.
That's really cool. Are there any sort of technologies that are out there at the moment that you're already thinking, oh wow, that would look really, really cool in a future game?
Well, again, it is like we did transition to using Unreal 5, and so some of what's cool about Unreal is it gives you so much just sort of like out of the gate, but the real differentiation is the studios who then push one aspect of Unreal in a surprising or more powerful direction, right? Like, you can't build the perfect engine for everyone, and so I guess it's hard to pick out any one specific, but every time a new game comes out, especially if it's built on Unreal, that's why, like, I cross all genres. I'm like, oh, this is a weird, it's a weird first-person shooter that is only being played in this particular region, but they do something absolutely crazy with Unreal. You should check it out. Let's look at the way that they do specular lighting. Oh my God, that's amazing. Why don't we do that, guys? And so I think a lot of it falls into that space. But the other place that I find inspiration, I say this as though I'm the creative on the team. I am a voice, but I get to be like, hey guys, that was cool stuff. And often the times they're like, cool idea, bro. And they look away and they make better decisions. But there are a lot of sort of smaller independent games that do really interesting things because they can experiment more widely. They don't have to stay within a genre space. They get to develop their own genres, and so I like to play on that end of the scale as well.
With regards to that kind of experimentation of new things to try, how do you sort of balance that between what you know is already popular in gaming and trying something brand new? How do you sort of decide what might work?
Well, I mean, that is 100% the challenge of building the next game in a beloved franchise. Like you never want to do exactly the same thing, right? Because the fans have not seen it, they've played it, they don't want just more of that. But they probably do want 80% of more of 80% of that, right? Like, again, I'm pulling out ridiculous random numbers, but like that is sort of the madness of trying to find what our next mainline game is. If we say, okay, this is what we've seen really popular within our games of the last decade, but also other games that are parallel to us or in the similar space. Which of these makes sense? But in the end, it all has to be in the service of a coherent, like, new idea and a new game project. And so it really is whether it is a 10% new or a 20% new kind of magic. Like, that is the alchemy that we're always working for. And so, sometimes I'm the guy who just comes in and says, this was really cool, and everyone kind of rolls their eyes and they're like, yeah, it doesn't work for our game, man. And I go, okay, that's great, whatever, like that's fine. But sometimes we do see something and we're like, oh, obviously, we don't want to just do what this other game did, but there is a Tomb Raider expression of that kind of thing that would be really cool, and it really resonates with our core pillars and core values of what do you always want in a Tomb Raider experience. Is there a way to actually adapt that and pull it in? Because new features are exciting to people, and we always try to find that sort of proper balance.
With regards to things that maybe sometimes don't go to plan, what has been the biggest challenge that you've faced since you took over your role at Tomb Raider?
Well, we referenced it earlier. It was a really hard decision to move away from the proprietary engine technology that we've been building, and that engine, like, it won awards, right? They many of these sort of benchmarking companies still use our game from 2018 as one of the highest benchmark products to say, what if you turn everything on? Let's see, how does it still perform? Like, it was a wonderful piece of technology, but it's really hard to stay up with. Like, you need a full engine team, and to be quite frank, like, we're not that big of an organization. Like, and in order to compete with what is happening with a dedicated engine company like the folks at Epic with Unreal, like, we just can't do all the things. And so there was sort of a question of like, well, we can have what we have, and we can add one or two new rendering features. And I'm making numbers up. It was more than that, but like, it's sort of that. Or do we jump onto this wholly new technology and we get 20 new features, but then we have to bring through a lot of our own technologies that differentiate us? That itself was like, it was a really, really hard process. And again, there were very strong pro and con conversations on both sides of that. And in the end, this was the decision that we made. And it's still, there on a weekly basis, we're like, oh gosh, I wish we had this thing that we used to have, and we figure out how to do it and how to implement it and all that, and it's work to do. But it's, there's never an easy answer for a big choice like that.
How long did that process take, that sort of decision making to switch engines?
I guess it's hard to quantify. Like from the discussion of like, hey, should we consider this, until we actually said, yes, we're doing it, was very long. It was maybe the better part of a year. But
wow.
In terms of, but that was, that was like just me and a couple of executives talking and being like, does this make sense? And talking with our sort of head of technology and all of that. Like the actual, like, the team was actually building stuff in parallel in both engines and doing a test. That was a much shorter period of time.
In this part of the episode, I would like to talk to you a little bit more about all things Tomb Raider past and how you feel about these things. So we're going to have a brief Tomb Raider throwback, and I'm going to phrase every single one of these as, of all previous 12 mainline titles and the spin-offs and the movies, which have been your favourite?
Great.
First of all, story.
I think that is actually going to be Tomb Raider 2013. I think it really, and I referenced earlier, it was as much the just the quality of the cinematic storytelling that brings it up to that level for me. That like, holy cow, this team, many of whom are still working on Tomb Raider, like, it felt like a jump, an order of magnitude jump in the quality of storytelling that I'd ever seen in a video game before. And really that blend of, no, this is cinema that is happening right here, and then it seamlessly transitions into control and action and on the sticks doing stuff, etc. And then it blew me away. And so that one, really, for just the ability to tell a story that beautifully and seamlessly, that kind of took my breath away.
I like that. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
I'd say something along the lines of how I really like the darker Tomb Raider entries with regards to things like the Angel of Darkness, and that had that sort of gothic noir secret history sort of feel to it. And then there were aspects of Chronicles which had like ghosts and things in it, and that haunted island. But then there was one thing that I really appreciated about 2013, and that was how gruesomely dark it was. Even from that very start area where Lara is just hanging upside down, and then wading through,
piercing her, like, holy, yeah.
Oh, the vibe of that, especially that first cave and escaping with the walls covered in skulls and that person strung up, chilling. Yeah. Really cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Which of the titles have had your favorite music?
Here, there can only be one answer, and it is the original game. Like the OG theme is iconic. It is it's still the thing that I think of whenever anyone says Tomb Raider. And again, this is me in my buddy's apartment in Los Angeles, just being like what is this thing? And just those notes they pull you into it. And so I know that broader orchestration and technology on the disc has improved over the years, and that still is the one that emotionally resonates the most to me.
I think a lot of people will definitely relate to that. They'll have a lot of agreement with that. Now let's move on to a bit of a more technical one. Which of the Tomb Raiders has had your favorite gameplay?
This is really hard. So because I'm a puzzle guy, I loved Underworld. And I know that, like, and this is also like knowing the sort of consumer feedback that came through. I was a player at the time, but I've now seen as like the game was too damn hard. It just was. And I loved that. In terms of just like on the sticks fun, I pick Rise. I really it's also something about sort of like the seamless move from the the moments like the avalanche of like that kind of active, like, holy shit, I need to make decisions in in real time and respond, followed by, oh, actually there's some fun exploration and even a little bit of hunting and all that kind of stuff. In like all of those aspects, I felt like it was just a masterclass in leveraging all of the gameplay that I wanted in a Tomb Raider game.
Nice. Oh wow. I absolutely loved Underworld. Underworld, I think, had some of my top favorite levels of all of Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Mexico, everyone rants and raves about how Thailand is incredible and their favorite and the best. For me, it's southern Mexico level, that rainy, gloomy jungle environment with those ancient temples and tombs. Oh, I'm shivering just thinking about it.
Love it.
Really cool. Now, let's move on to the big screen. Which has been your favorite movie?
It's got to be the first one. Angelina just nailed it. And we talk about like the tone of Tomb Raider, and like there have been various tones throughout. You sort of talk about the dark era there, and there's classic, and there's sort of the LAU, and then I love the sassy, badass like a presentation. Like she just gets it, and it's fun. She just nails it. Less so Prey of Life, but that's not her fault. That is I feel like that was maybe not the best writing experience there. That's no shade, I guess. It didn't feel like it had the same level of polish. And while I liked the 2018 film, I think it was tough because it was such a it was halfway between being a retelling of 2013 and not. And so I think for me as a fan, that was the thing that sort of jarred for me. I still think there were some great moments in it, and it's a fun movie to watch, but like it doesn't have the Angelina feel.
Fair. Big one. What's been your favorite Tomb Raider moment?
Oh boy. So I have two answers, but I'm gonna go with the locking Winston in the freezer. So again, especially as a game developer, knowing that when we develop these games, we make things accidentally possible that we do not intend, but then to embrace it and be like, yes, that is great. Our QA testers have found this absolutely bonkers thing you can do. Great. This is now just part of this game. It is now like an iconic moment in the game. So that's probably it's maybe an easy answer, but I just love it.
And what has been your favorite non-Lara character?
So this is entirely wish fulfillment, but I did have a really unfortunate flavor saver beard in the late aughts. And so it is Curtis.
Amazing!
Right, and really the idea that I bet I could be that much of a badass. I bet that I am cool and sexy enough and tough enough that I could be the guy who is the rival of Lara Croft. I love the vibe. To be clear, I do not own a motorcycle. I am in no way cool. I am not cool at all. But absolute wish fulfillment, I'm I want to be that dude.
We love Curtis here at Raidercast. Big fan of that old Secret Society vibe with him. Love it. Fantastic.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit earlier about what you hold dear as the core Tomb Raider values. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not going to rattle the exact ones off the top of my head, but all of the games have we want to have a sort of a myth-forward mystery, right? We like these to be sort of maybe mysteries and mythological that have ideas that have a basis in our reality, right? But we love Lara to be solving these myth-fueled adventures, and so that's thing number one. Thing number two is you have to have exciting, dangerous traversal as well as combat. Both of those are just sort of what you doing on the sticks elements that it must be part of it. The more the more these things all feel like puzzles, like the better. And so that whole like puzzle and the midfield mystery thing kind of sits over the top of it. Again, having a great storyline, but the giant puzzles, these giant colossal contraptions, like that's also like a key thing. And so there are X number of those that you always know that at some point you're going to turn a corner and you're going to look at a room and go, oh, okay, it's on. It is on now, and I'm going to be figuring this thing out, and I'm going to be frustrated, and I'm going to be punching the desk and being like, wait, is there another trigger or another lever or another, like, what am I missing here? Like, that moment is, again, to me as a gamer, again, I have this sort of like old, very puzzly background, but that's a bit of it. But as I said, that kind of suffuses everything. So when we talk about the way that the traversal feels, it needs to also feel like there's a puzzle there, right? Like you have to figure it out. You can't just be like, I'm just good at parkour. Like you have to be like, oh no, there's a pattern here, or there's some timing, or there's some other aspects of it. There's clever use of the tools that I have, or the special traversal that's available in this particular game. So that's the same is true of combat. Again, no shade at the original Tomb Raider. It was what was available in terms of AI, right? But like, we have pulled that now into the way that even combat plays out. Is like, you have to figure something out here. You know, maybe you can avoid the combat, maybe you can stealth around it, maybe you can like, etc. So all of those are elements, and that's just sort of mechanical elements. I think that there are also sort of the Lara elements, and we talked about like her confidence, and she is this this kind of almost a superhero level person. She has these skills that are beyond. She's always the smartest person in the room, as well as probably the most athletically competent person in the room. She can solve problems on the fly, and so her characterization is part of that as well.
That's actually something that I think I remember reading in Megan Marie's book, The 20 Years of Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
And I think she worded it, or it was part of an interview with someone,
yeah.
excuse me, where they described how Lara was in the past versus how she is in the Survivor trilogy. Like, she hasn't got there yet, because Lara's sass and Lara's confidence, she enters a situation and she's able to knock off these one-liners because she knows she's already won.
Miss Croft, are you deaf?
I don't know. Let's see. Try begging for your life like you did the last time we spoke.
Yep,
like,
absolutely. And that's, and it really is, and I think I talked about this in a year or two ago in something that we put out, but like this idea of like, we love Lara like having a real person's journey in terms of who she is emotionally. And so when she is the survivor Lara, she's a little bit like unsure of herself. She's a little bit emo. Like the games themselves are dark, but also like she is finding herself, and she is not fully confident, but she tries like hell, right? She pushes through, like, just one foot in front of the other, like never stop moving. Like that is again, I'm reflecting on my own personal experience. Like that's who we all probably are in our like late teens and early 20s. I'm just figuring it out, and it's really hard. There is a point, and again, maybe in your mid 20s, when you're like, actually, I've got this. I know how stuff works, right? And maybe it's a little bit overconfident, but there's some swagger and all of that comes into it. And that's kind of the journey we see of the Lara from the classic from the Survivor into the classic era of like, as you said, she's already won. She knows that she's 2 steps ahead of you, or if something crazy happens, she'll be able to react.
In the past, I've done a few episodes where I've reached out to fans and asked them to send in their thoughts and feelings about various things in Tomb Raider, and I've done some where I've asked them to explain what Lara means to them. And just to sort of echo what you were just saying then about Lara in the Survivor trilogy, the amount of time, the amount of people who said that they drew strength from Survivor Lara, because when she's put in those situations, she doesn't give up, she perseveres, and she has this mantra of just keep going, I can do this.
Just keep moving.
Keep moving. And it's great, because you've had the Lara in the original timeline where
Right.
she had that confidence, and people were able to draw confidence from that character, knowing I can be like that.
Right.
But then with the survivor, they themselves, if they were down on their luck or if they weren't feeling it, they could look still to Lara Croft, and she can pull them through it, and that is immensely powerful.
Yeah, and it to me at least, it grounds the classic Lara a little bit, because you now know where that confidence comes from, right? You're like, who could possibly be that confident in every situation? You're like, well, she survived Yamatai, and she survived Katesh. Like she survived a resetting of the world from the sun god. Like she's been through it, and she never gave up, and she pushed and she pushed, and she made this stuff happen, so that when something else confronts her X number of years down the line, she's like, yeah, I've got this. Yeah, no, I got this.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
With regards to fans, does fan feedback play a role in game development from your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tomb Raider has been around, and it's been successful for more than 25 years, and it's because of the fans. It's because we have this group of people who have such a deep passion and such a deep connection with Lara, with who she is, with what her journey has been. We do research, and this is one of those, I guess it feels like a dirty secret, but it's not a dirty secret. Like, we do research every time that we're getting into the ideas for these concepts for what is the next game going to be, what is the next product going to be. And we reach out to the broad fan base, the narrow fan base, the hardcore dedicated fan base, and we ask about what people's expectations are. We ask about what people's desires are. We ask about, like, what resonates for you the most with Lara Croft. And as I was referencing, like, those touch points, those pillars of who Lara Croft is and what one expects. You want puzzle solving, you want these myth-fueled mysteries, you want Lara Croft at the center of them, you want her solving these things on the fly, you want action, you want cinematic storytelling. All of those things, like, that's not just us being like, what should we do? Like, it is both what we hear the fans say anecdotally, but then it's also what is borne out by the research, right? And so like, that is the process. And even to the thing I said earlier about that sort of like 80-20, again, I'm making up dumb numbers rule, 70-30 rule about stick with what works and then do some new stuff. Like, that's also based on, we ask, what would you like to see? What is the most exciting new thing you've never seen Lara Croft do? And we're not going to do all of that, and some of it is absolutely wrong, and we go, cool, bro, she's not going to do that, right? Because it goes against some of our pillars. But it is all about engaging with the fan base and sort of understanding the things that they want. I will also say, and this is from having run live games for a very long time, you can't always give fans exactly what they vote for, because all of us as consumers, we want cookies all the time, right? Like, we do. And if you say, this is what we want, and we go, yeah, we're going to give you a little bit of that, but we're not going to give you 6 boxes of cookies right now. It's because you're going to make yourself sick, right? And again, it's a dumb, belabored metaphor that I'm doing here right now. But, we can't allow that to sort of drive every decision we make. There still has to be a little bit of sort of ownership of the artistry of, but how does this land best? And the answer may be we give them 5% more of this thing that is very exciting and interesting. But this is actually going to also be exciting and cool, and it's going to pay off in a bigger way. So we always have to make those determinations as well.
I suppose as well as if everyone had absolutely everything they wanted just for one next game, where do you go from there?
Absolutely. And also, as I'm sure you're very well aware of, there are conflicting wants, right? Like this is a fan base that has some real hard takes, and some people are diametrically opposed and they believe it just as hard. So there's actually no way to give those two fans what they want, at least not 100%, right? And so that is, as it where the artistry of it goes. I mean, I'm going to try and stay away from a specific example so that I don't inflame people. But if people are like, no, Lara needs to be right-handed, and people say, no, she needs to be left-handed, we might compromise and let her use 2 hands, whatever. Maybe she's ambidextrous, that kind of compromise, but also what is true to the vision of who Lara is. Like, those are the decisions we have to make.
Excellent. Okay. We're drawing towards the end of this episode now, but I have a couple of questions left. And this one is kind of about you and your role. For people who would love to do what you do, what is the sort of advice you can give them and skills that they should have?
So, being a producer, which is at the end of the day what I am, is all about communication. And this is going to sound really trite, but the most important skill in communication is listening. What I really do, and I do is all day long, every day, in every meeting, my job is not only to convey information, to be like, oh, by the way, this is the new information, because sometimes I have access to new information that I need to disperse across the various teams. But really, I'm present for lots of conversations where my job is to listen and go, oh, those two people are talking past each other. Those people actually agree, but they have a tiny point of disagreement, and they're focusing on the tiny point of disagreement. And it is my job to step in and say, hey, everybody, what we're all saying is this, and this. We all agree on these 6 points. We're arguing over this tiny thing that we don't need to solve today, and that maybe we can prove out with data. Maybe this is something that is testable later on, but like, we can all agree that we're moving forward on these 6 things. Great, right? That's sort of like, that's my win for the day. And so, it's hard to say like, how do you work on that skill? But the answer is, you really work on trying to be the voice of reason in all of your interactions and all of your conversations with crazy family members, with weird coworkers, with all of that. If you can be the person who is saying, okay, I see where this is going, and we're having a big conflict or a big disagreement or whatever, and what we all agree on is this, let's all get aligned. Finding people and getting them aligned is the job. There's a lot of organizational stuff too, so like, people who are good at managing lists and Jira and sort of like Confluence, all of the tools that we use, like that is also what producers do a lot of. But that's sort of the end product of, did you get everybody aligned? Does everybody know what they're doing? Great. Now you can put them in sort of trackable information that people can work against.
Excellent. Okay. Finally, is there anything special that you would like to let Tomb Raider fans know?
Yeah, I mean, so thing number one is, we love you all. I've said it out loud. We try to say it over and over. Is our goal here is no Lara left behind, right? We want desperately, as much as possible, to honor all of the different representations, all of the different forms of Lara. We've talked about games from the classic era, from the LAU era, from the films, even from the Lara Croft series of games, like. We all have these sort of attachments and loves for these moments. It's often the first version that we played, right? Like that's the one that hit, and therefore that's the right version, etc. And so that's the big takeaway that I want everyone to know. We are very, very attuned to, we can't please everyone with every single thing that we do. Hopefully you've seen that even with various partnerships and products that we've done over the last year, we're doing things that honor each era. Right, like the partnership that we worked with our friends at Aspire to bring the Tomb Raider 1, 2, 3 remastered out. It's because we love Tomb Raider 1, 2, 3, and we wanted to see a version that was playable on modern consoles. Yep. We all want that, and we love that, and it's because we love the Lara Croft of those games. We also feel the same way about the Survivor games. So again, many of the people in the building worked on the Survivor games, and they love them. But they don't love them and hate the others, right? They don't say this is the only, like, no one believes that. And so when we do all of these partnerships, right, we try to make choices that are appropriate for that particular partnership. Again, I'm not sure if you played the Dead by Daylight one, but like we actually talked with them about like which is the best version of Lara, and we're like, well, how about the one who starts the game hanging on a hook? How about we do that, because you're going to have her hung up on a hook. So let's go into that space. And a lot of people are like, oh, but the other, and like, yes, you could find a good reason to put any Lara in there, but that felt the most resonant. And so that was the one that we chose to honor there. But I don't know if you bought the Tubbs duck, but like we did a Tubbs duck, and we're like, again, it's going to be a polygonal duck. Like, man, here's our, whatever this is going to show up on your.
Amazing.
There you go. Exactly. Like, and it's because everybody loves Polygon Lara, so let's do it. Let's make it the do the partnership that actually resonates with that. So that's really the big thing as we work on the next mainline game, as we work on this Netflix animated series. Like, we know that it's a bridge in between Survivor into Classic. It's going to have some aspects of both of those. As we work on live action stuff, we are trying to honor all of the eras while still giving these creators a little bit of creative leeway to like make a great story, to make a great experience.
That is a fantastic note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us, Dallas. This has been
wonderful.
An absolute pleasure. Such an exciting episode. I am thrilled that you joined us. Thank you.
Love it, Chris. I really appreciate you taking the time.
And you are completely welcome. There is an open invite to return in the future. We can discuss things that have not yet come out, and I would love to shoot the breeze with you about these things as well.
Lovely. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, cheers.